Giordano Bruno. You've probably heard that name, right? And when you do, one image probably pops into your head. A man being burned at the stake by the church for his wild scientific ideas. But what if the story we all think we know isn't the whole story? Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's paint a picture. The year is 1600. We're in Rome. A philosopher, a former friar named Giordano Bruno, is standing trial. And this isn't his first day in court. He's been locked up for 8 years. Now he's about to hear his final sentence from the Roman Inquisition. I mean, the stakes just don't get any higher than this.
So, you know the popular version of the story, right? He's the ultimate martyr for science. The guy who was executed just for saying the Earth revolves around the sun. And that's a great story. Science versus religion, hero versus the establishment. But what if that's not the whole truth? What if the real reasons he was condemned were way more complicated? And honestly, even more radical? All right, to really get what's going on here, we have to start with his ideas. And I mean, they were absolutely mind-bending, especially for the time. These are the ideas that really fueled that whole martyr for science legend. Okay, first off, for Bruno, it wasn't just that the Earth moved. No, his idea was way bigger. He argued the entire universe was infinite. Think about that. No center, no edge, just endless. All of a sudden, in that vision, Earth isn't special anymore. It's not the center of creation. It's just one planet floating around out there with who knows how many others. I mean, this just completely blows up the neat and tidy, human-centered universe everyone believed in. And that leads right into his next bombshell idea, something we call cosmic pluralism. See, when Bruno looked up at the night sky, he didn't just see little twinkly lights. He saw other suns, distant suns. And his logic was, well, if they're suns, shouldn't they have planets orbiting them just like ours does? And if there are other planets, could there be other life on them? This was so much more than astronomy. This was a direct challenge to the idea that humanity was the sole special focus of God's creation. Okay, and this is where his science starts to crash head-on into theology. Bruno was what we call a pantheist. For him, God wasn't some separate being, a creator sitting on a throne up in the clouds. No, for Bruno, God was the universe. Everything, nature, the stars, us, it was all one single living divine thing. The creator and creation, one and the same. Now that is a radical idea. And you can just feel the conviction in his own words from way back in 1584. He wasn't just tossing out ideas, he was declaring it as truth. To him, an infinite universe wasn't just possible, it was a logical necessity. This was a guy who was absolutely sure of himself, and there was just no room for him to back down. So, with all these incredible, universe-shattering ideas, you'd think that's what his trial was all about, right? His cosmology. But this is where the story we think we know takes a really sharp turn. The thing is, when you actually look at the records from the Roman Inquisition, yeah, his astronomical theories were in there. They were part of the picture, but they weren't the main charges, not even close. The real core of the case against him was something else entirely. All right, check this out. These are the official charges, and they're overwhelmingly theological. We're talking about things like denying the Trinity, questioning the divinity of Christ, denying the miracle of the Mass. On top of that, they throw in believing in reincarnation and engaging in magic and divination. And then, yeah, you see it there on the list, claiming the existence of a plurality of worlds. His cosmology is there, but look at it. It's just one item buried in a whole laundry list of what the church considered to be serious, soul-destroying heresy. So what does this all mean? Was he killed for his science or for his heresy? Well, the real answer, the key to understanding Bruno, is that in his mind, you couldn't separate the two. It really breaks down like this. The popular story is clean, simple. A hero of science, martyred by religion. But the historical record? It's messier, for sure, but honestly, it's so much more interesting. He was executed for a whole bunch of theological beliefs that the church found blasphemous, and his cosmic ideas were just seen as part of that bigger heretical package. And here's the absolute key to understanding him. For Bruno, it was all connected. His logic went like this. How could a truly infinite God create a tiny, finite universe? It didn't make sense. An infinite creator, he argued, demands an infinite creation. So you see, his science wasn't separate from his theology. It was a direct extension of it. The two were so tangled up that the Inquisition couldn't pull on one thread without unraveling the whole thing. And the man himself? Wow. He was born Filippo Bruno, but took the name Giordano. He was brilliant, absolutely no doubt about it. But he was also famously arrogant and had a real talent for making enemies wherever he went. I mean, get this, it wasn't just the Catholics who kicked him out. He also got excommunicated by the Lutherans and the Calvinists. This guy was a rebel against pretty much every religious authority he ever met. His final 8 years were just grim. In 1592, he was tricked into coming back to Italy, where he was immediately betrayed and handed over to the Inquisition. And then came the trial. Not a trial of a few weeks or months. This was a nearly 7-year ordeal of imprisonment and interrogations. Over and over, they gave him a chance to recant, to just say, "I was wrong." And every time, he refused. Finally, on February 17th, 1600, it was over.
So here we are, over 400 years later. Why are we still talking about Giordano Bruno? I think it's because his story, his legacy, ended up becoming something much bigger than just science or just theology. It became about the very freedom to think for yourself.
Fast forward a few centuries to 1889. A statue was put up in Rome, in a square called the Campo dei Fiori. This is the exact spot where Bruno was burned alive. And the statue wasn't put there to celebrate a scientist specifically. It was a monument to free thought itself. A really defiant statement right in the heart of the very city that killed him. And that's really why he still matters so much. At the end of the day, what Bruno died for was the right of an individual to question everything, to follow an idea wherever it leads, no matter what the established dogma says. He stood up for the authority of his own mind, and he paid the highest possible price for that belief. And as they sentenced him to death, he looked his judges right in the eye and supposedly said this: "Perhaps you pronounce this sentence against me with greater fear than I receive it." Just think about that. He's not just being brave, he's turning the tables on them, saying, "You're more afraid of my ideas than I am of your punishment." It's one of the most defiant, mic drop moments in all of history.
So we circle right back to where we started. Was he a martyr for science or a heretic who just happened to have some brilliant ideas about the cosmos? You know, maybe he was both. Or maybe those labels are just too small for him. Perhaps the biggest lesson from Giordano Bruno isn't about the specific answers he had, but about his relentless, stubborn, and ultimately fatal insistence on the right to ask the questions, the freedom to think, even if it costs you everything.